ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AirWAVs, a podcast series purpose-built for integrators seeking industry insights, technology trends, and an overall fun way to digest the latest in wired and wireless technologies. My name is Zach Hubeck. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing for WAV Incorporated, a Chicago-based technology distributor by day and also a trusted advisor by day as well. On the line with me today for our first podcast of 2019, I have Shawn Ruckus, who's the Director of Global Solutions Engineering for Ruckus Networks, a unit and division of AirWAVs. And I also have Steve Wimsatt, Business Development and Strategic Alliances for Ruckus Networks as well. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us today, guys. Like I mentioned, this is our first podcast of many in 2019. And just a quick background on WAV. As I stated, we're a distributor and we're in a unique position to help integrators and resellers. Shipping cardboard to customers as a distributor is our defined role in the Ruckus channel, but advising, guiding, assisting customers align with the right technology, the right vertical markets, for the right technological reason is what we get all geeked up about. And today we're talking about smart cities, Ruckus style. So gentlemen, rules of the road here. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. I'm going to pepper you. We're going to pick your brain on some of the coolest things about smart city out there. And we're going to go Family Feud style. Okay. So I asked the question. Whoever says their name first gets to answer it. Alternatively, and I'll give you guys the choice, we can go reverse alphabetical by the third letter in your middle names. Which would you prefer?
We'll just go by my first way. That's right. Just let Steve go first. I'll respect my elders.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll try then. Shawn will correct me.
All right. Awesome. I love it. Okay, guys. So we know your formal titles over at Ruckus Networks, but please take a moment. Steve, you first, then Shawn. Tell us who you are, why you should be a trusted advisor on smart city topic, and give us a little bit of your background and history, please.
Great. Let me start. Steve Wimsatt. I've been with Ruckus for about 8 years now, and focused the entire time on alliances, business development, and really opening up a lot of new market opportunities for us. So for the last couple of years, I've been focused on smart cities, talking to ecosystem partners in that space, and really working on a number of initiatives. One of these is the Global City Team Challenge, which is a U.S. NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology program, where they're trying to get cities to work together and share best practices of how to do smart cities. So I'm on the leadership team for the wireless group within the GCTC. And through that, I've had a lot of opportunity to talk to cities. So I'm just pretty well versed in what cities are doing and what some of their challenges are.
I love it. Awesome. Shawn, how about you, sir?
So I have been with Ruckus also in the 8-year space, maybe even a little longer than that. I'd have to go back and have a look. But I'm a former engineering manager, and I've spent a lot of time with folks just like our listeners here and our channel partners like WAV, doing, well, exactly what I do today on a different level. And what it is I do today is we solve problems with connectivity. That's really what my group does, right? So out there in the industry today, customers have problems that plague their businesses, and it distracts them from their individual mission statement. And any time that you have a distraction from your mission, and that mission for a lot of us is making money, but for a smart city, schools, businesses, enterprises, municipalities, all these people have different missions, and those missions, they're critical. And when you have to pay attention to connectivity, when you have to invest in connectivity, you have to think about connectivity, you're not doing what it was you were there to do in the first place. So instead of selling them things, my mission is to make sure that we answer the problems that plague their businesses and plague their enterprises and plague their cities, and provide those answers in a form that effectively solves those problems. That's what I do. And the reason I'm good at it is because I have spent all that time in the field, and I do know what those problems are, and I see them on a day-to-day basis.
I love it. Very good, Shawn. So to that end, and I think that's a good segue, Steve, you've talked to a lot of cities. Why don't we just jump right into it? Smart city is such a broad term, guys. What does that mean in Ruckus's eyes, in your guys' previous experience, and what are cities trying to solve from a challenge perspective? Steve, take it, brother.
Great question, Zach. And I would say, really, Ruckus probably has a different view than many of the cities. The term smart city, when you're talking to a city, really means new functionalities, new capabilities, such as smart grid, smart street lights, smart parking, where they are deploying sensors or devices throughout the city. They connect them back, and they're getting new information, new capabilities to make better decisions, to streamline their operations, to deliver new services, and just fundamentally improve the quality of life of their citizens. So it's all about those end capabilities. From a Ruckus perspective, we don't actually deliver those end capabilities. We're not an application vendor. We're not a sensor vendor. We're not a mobile computer vendor. We're a networking vendor. So we provide the connectivity that enables all those things. We provide the broadband connectivity, both wired and wireless. We have an innovative IoT solution where you leverage the same infrastructure and can add in BLE or Zigbee and other IoT networking solutions. And we offer CBRS, a private LTE capability. So Ruckus provides all the wired and wireless infrastructure and the management and security and the analytics so that a city can easily roll out and operate a large-scale IoT or smart city solution.
One might say you're the connectivity superhighway, Steve. Fair assessment?
Yeah, we'd love for people to say that. I like superhighway.
I love it. Cool. Shawn, what's your take on that same question?
Well, smart cities is a lot of things to a lot of different people. It's one of those words, right, or phrases that just kind of means too much. But it's really three things, right? It's providing an amenity for people that come, whether they're tourists or residents or students, right? And then it's digital divide, which I'll talk about in a hot second. And then it's IoT, like Steve mentioned. And more often than not, when we talk about smart city, people talk about the things that a city can do with that connectivity. And that's what we talk about as a connectivity provider, to give people a little bit of scope to embrace their creativity and say, hey, think of all the cool things you could do if you had the highest performing, highest capacity connectivity, and it was ubiquitous across your city. And that's what Ruckus brings to the table. But when we talk about an amenity for residents or students or tourists, we're talking about giving maybe the Chamber of Commerce the ability to market and advertise to those people, or give those people connectivity so they can find their way around with things like GPS, or find a place to eat with connectivity. Because, more than 50% of network traffic from mobile devices goes across Wi-Fi. Now, the second thing is digital divide. Digital divide is another way of saying broadband equity, which is bringing internet connectivity to people that don't otherwise have it. Maybe they can't afford it. Maybe they just don't have it, like me. I live out in the boonies. But how do you bridge that divide? And why do we call it a digital divide? We call it a digital divide because children that are growing up today that don't have access to excellent broadband connectivity, reliable broadband connectivity, face the same challenges as an adult that speaks English as a second language. It means you grow up and you don't speak the same language as everybody around you. You don't know what a tweet is. You don't know how to reply to a blog post or a Tumblr or a Reddit. You don't even know what those things are. So when people are having those conversations, it provides a divide. It means that you have a chasm between you and the people around you of communication. And that chasm of communication is something that cities can avoid by putting in ubiquitous connectivity. And the last thing that Steve mentioned is IoT-based services. Those IoT-based services are things like smart parking meters and smart gas and smart water. What is a smart parking meter good for? Well, when I talked to the city council just a couple weeks ago in Mount Dora, Florida, that's exactly what we talked about, because the number one thing people complain about in Mount Dora is parking. There's nowhere to park. So if you put in smart IoT-based parking meters, you reduce traffic in that city by up to 30%. That is one individual way in one individual city that smart cities make a difference.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, just to hit on your point a little bit more, Shawn, you've got so many programs in place, like one-to-one initiatives at the state level or even federal level, where a child is handed a tablet or a computer, and all of the homework is digital. The testing is digital, and guess what? They take that home. Mom and dad may not have connectivity or broadband access at home, and that student is clearly at a disadvantage and getting simply what they need to get done from a homework perspective or testing perspective done until they bring that back to the school. So it's great that you make that point and emphasize that point. Great things you guys are doing here. Awesome.
Yeah, and Zach, I'll say one more point on that is in our activity in public Wi-Fi, that is the biggest driver we're seeing. It used to be public Wi-Fi was an amenity. You'd put it in the downtown shopping district or the dense, crowded downtown areas. But now it's much more this digital divide, and both the mayors and the school boards are seeing this as a critical issue. So whereas 2 or 3 years ago you wouldn't see a lot of Wi-Fi in less dense areas or in the lower income areas, now there's a huge push to figure out how can we get Wi-Fi out there as really the least cost broadband access solution.
Yep. Good. Shawn, did you want to add on to that? I heard you chime in a little bit there.
I was just making a joke. No big deal. Wasn't even funny.
Love it. All right. Smart city. So you look at so many different approaches, and from an outsider looking in from a macro level, it seems pretty intimidating. Like, I'm a smart city. How do we monetize this? Is it done through advertising? Do I make, what tax bucket does this fall in? Do I use certain funds to fund this project? What's the return for the city? So as far as the economics behind smart city, how does not only the city planners and whomever else monetize this, but also from an integrator standpoint, what are some of the monetary things that are at play here?
Let me take a shot at that, and this is going to be sort of a long answer, so cut me off. But from a city perspective, yeah, please. From a city perspective, there's a number of different approaches, and it can change based on the situation, the size of the city, their goals, a number of very unique factors that will be unique to each and every city. First of all, in many cases, and especially smaller cities, much of this is just seen as something that has to be done. They need, their people need broadband access. Their people need, better services from the city. So the city will just pay for it out of its funds as a form of infrastructure, just like they pay for roads and the police and buses and things like that. And I know that this isn't the number one topic when you go to the smart city conferences, but in smaller cities, I think this is probably how most of them pay for it. But there's a lot of ways that they can offset that cost. Advertising, and I know advertising probably has a bad reputation. It's been overly promoted. People have been overly aggressive in their promises, but you can, in many cases, offer advertising over the Wi-Fi, and the more people that are on that network, the more valuable that will be. It's not going to pay for your public Wi-Fi, but it can offset, say, 20-30% of your cost, and that's a pretty good deal. Other ways you can pay for it, sometimes, and especially with a larger city, you can enter into a public-private partnership. This is essentially a trade. I think it was Cincinnati did an RFP a year or two ago, and they said, "Hey, we need public Wi-Fi, and in return, we'll provide preferred access for deploying new fiber networks around the city." So they were going for service providers who were looking to expand their broadband networks, who might provide free Wi-Fi in return for that trade. New York City has a major project, Link New York City, which is actually driven by Intersection, a unit of Alphabet. In that case, the city gave advertising rights for those kiosks, and in return, intersection is providing very high quality public Wi-Fi and free calling over those kiosks. So PPP, if you're a large city or a city that has something that they can effectively trade with a private enterprise, that's a great way to pay for it. Another way that cities can pay for it is via grants. Especially there's a lot of grant money right now for public safety. Smart, safe city initiatives are booming. There's a lot of new things you can do with IP video. And if you have a grant for a safe city and you use Wi-Fi to help connect some of those IP video cameras, first of all, Wi-Fi is the cheapest, fastest, easiest way to deploy those to connect those cameras. And secondly, there's plenty of excess capacity where you can also use that same network for public Wi-Fi. And the same thing if you're deploying an IoT network. If you use the same network infrastructure to connect your IoT devices, as you can also put Wi-Fi on that, and that's a way to share the cost and lower the cost to the city of the public services. So we think there's a lot of ways that cities are doing it. There's really not a single silver bullet solution, but there's some new options. I guess the other one that comes up a lot is on the 5G small cell sites. And sometimes cities are working with particular types of operators that will deploy a free public Wi-Fi network, and really a first-class network with fiber to every AP. But the trade is the city will then allow those entities to resell that space also to support 5G small cells. So the city gets free public Wi-Fi and probably a faster deployment of 5G small cells, but they have to share some of the revenue from leasing the space for those small cells.
Nice. Truly a give and get, and leveraging your network as well. Just reaching out, seeing if there's different applications. I think it's some great points you make there, Steve. The public officials and city officials are going to have public safety needs, and they can leverage that same highway cellular offload as well is one that you flirted with a little bit there with 5G, but certainly some great points you made there. Shawn, anything to add?
Yeah, well, I think there's two ways to look at it, right? Most people that go into smart city, they look at, okay, how do we monetize this? Monetization is the first thing people think about in terms of offsetting the cost of a public Wi-Fi or a smart city infrastructure. And monetization can be done in two ways. You have direct monetization and indirect monetization. Direct monetization is pay me, right? So, and you offer a service. You might say that we have a free Wi-Fi that's available to everybody, but a free Wi-Fi may have blocks on certain content, may have a certain amount of bandwidth that you're allowed to use in a given day. It may have, a certain amount of bandwidth you're allowed to use at a time. So what you're able to do is say, for more money, I'm going to charge you, $5, and you can now go faster and access that content you wanted to see. That's direct monetization. Indirect monetization is what Steve was talking about with advertising. Advertising can be just an overlay of an ad that you were going to see anyway, which is kind of surreptitious and a pretty great way to do it, or something we call interstitial advertising, which means a pop-up ad. That's ugly and people don't like it very much. But those are kind of the two ways that people think about, financing these types of things. But the other thing, when we talk about IoT and smart city is designed to reduce cost for cities. So they have to think about what are they going to get from a smart building or smart parking or smart garbage or smart lighting. Those reductions in costs, I'll tell you, those groups, the big challenge we have that our MSPs have and our integrators have is they're not talking to those folks. Right? The IT guy doesn't talk to public works about how much they can save reducing garbage collection costs because of a connected trash bin. So building that conversation at the top level is so important, as Steve alluded to, that it's really broad scale in the effect that smart cities can have in reducing costs for a city. And when you talk about monetizing on one end and reducing costs on the other, the payback is much faster than folks think it will be. And it's not as simple as how much will people pay for this service.
Got it. Good stuff, gentlemen. Good stuff. One of the things that is smart city and very IoT-esque and a very close to home thing that I have to navigate with my family on a regular basis is just Chicago parking. And I will say that when you have this superhighway, this connectivity, and you see a parking facility, you can literally see how many slots are available. I guarantee you the traffic flow is reduced. The ability to quote unquote sell out a parking garage, either for the city or a private parking garage. I prefer to park in those facilities that have IoT capabilities because I can just drive by and say, oh, 6 slots left. And across the street, there's another parking facility that has 200 parking spots left. And,
what if you could choose your slot before you got there? What if when you pulled into the city, and you told it the address you were going to, it told you what parking center you were going to use and what your slot was, and you weren't charged until you pulled into it?
Absolutely. That is smart, Shawn, as they say.
Check that out.
I love it. Cool. So, Steve, business development and strategic alliances. We're talking a lot about the superhighway, and what are some of those strategic alliances that Ruckus has? Who are some of those other third-party companies out there that you guys are strategically aligned with that help facilitate some of this cool BLE, IoT stuff? Who are those companies, and what should the listeners be honing in on and listening for? Who else should they be partnering up with to be able to facilitate a smart city deployment?
Couple things. Let me put them into buckets. Starting with some partners that make it easier to deploy smart city networks. And there's been a lot of discussion about streetlights being a strategic asset. They're ubiquitous. They have power. They're most often located in areas where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. They're in all parts of the city, and they're a great place to mount access points. So we've been working with a number of streetlight vendors, including Philips, Schrader. Philips is actually called Signify now in the U.S. But people like Philips and Schrader that have unique ways of integrating Ruckus APs into or on their streetlight poles. So that, many cities are concerned about the aesthetics. So we have solutions where you can hide the AP, where they don't clutter up the city. And they also have ways where we've got special ways of mounting the access points, so it's easier, faster to get it done. So we have those solutions. We also work with many or most of the major digital kiosk vendors. So the Link New York City kiosk, which is probably the largest kiosk deployment in the country or probably in the world, those are with a company called Civic, which works with the intersection and Link New York City people for those kiosks. But Civic has a full line of digital kiosks. We also work with JC&Co. We work with LG MRI, and we work with a company called City Beacon. So all these kiosks, they bring a great advertising model because they typically, they have a range of offerings, but they have digital screens as large as 55 inches on each side. They're probably 12 or 14 feet high, so there's a great place to mount an access point, maybe some additional radios up on top of those things. They can often include video cameras. They're really an ideal location for any number of applications. But we work with those partners. They include Ruckus Wi-Fi, often as an amenity that they offer to the city or the town or the transportation agency, so they can get the right to deploy those kiosks. In terms of applications, we're really focused in smart cities on LoRa as an IoT networking solution. We haven't talked about this yet, but we love Wi-Fi and it does a lot of things, but we don't think there's a single wireless solution that's a perfect fit for every single end use case. And specifically in smart cities, where you have a very wide area to cover, all across the city, including areas where there might not be many people, maybe an industrial area or something. And you want to put in a lot of these new IoT solutions like smart streetlights or smart parking meters or smart trash bins, smart rodent traps. You have some very low-cost sensors that just need to ping every 15 minutes. They need to say, the streetlight is working, or we've caught a rat, or the trash can is full, the trash can isn't full. You need a long-range wireless technology that allows the end device to maximize its battery power or to conserve energy. So you can go for really 5 to 10 years off a battery on those devices. So it's very low cost to deploy those things. So we're working with, we think LoRa technology is a great wireless solution for that. And we're working with a company called Tectelic, which has a full range of LoRa gateways, both for indoor and outdoor purposes. And these gateways, for very, very low cost, the city of Calgary has 3 Tectelic gateways. They've got them up on 10-meter towers, which are about 30 feet tall. And literally the 3 LoRa gateways cover almost the entire city. So they've got a blanket LoRa network across the city. And they're using that for a number of use cases. Tectelic provides this great LoRa infrastructure. We have a partnership with a company called Actility, which brings in a full ecosystem of solutions. So if you want meter reading, if you want smart street lights, if you want fill level sensors for things like trash cans or other sorts of containers where you need to know how full things are, you can go to the Actility website and just click on which solutions you need, and there's a number of solution options available. And it's a very easy way for cities to get started and trial different IoT solutions. So
Steve,
there's a long list.
I think in that one answer, Steve, you just filled out the balance of our agenda for podcasts for 2019. I mean, so cool hearing how many different technologies, things you should be thinking about, from an aesthetics perspective. The one you didn't touch on, and I was hoping you would, but so please elaborate. Let's talk about some of those advertising manufacturers or third-party companies, folks like Ragapop, Purple. I don't want to steal any thunder there, but if you could talk about some of those guys and what they're capable of doing, I think that would be helpful for the group at home.
Now I'm drawing a blank on some of the names.
Shawn, you want to take that one?
Let me pull this up. No, let me. Well, you said it, and you're right. I went with the physical solution partners. I want the ones with shiny toys. So I apologize.
No.
As part of any public Wi-Fi deployment, you need an access management system. Basically, at its minimum, you need a captive portal where people get on the Wi-Fi, and typically there's an end user license agreement that says, do you agree to the terms and conditions, and if so, click here and we'll let you on the internet. But those solutions can offer a wide range of capabilities. Some of these are, they can offer different options to pay for the connectivity. Maybe you could have access codes. You could potentially take credit cards. Actually, the city of Minneapolis is the only city I know of, but they do offer a fee-based public Wi-Fi system that pays for itself. But they can offer that. They can offer a range of analytics. So the city can get demographic information. They can get, other analytics of how long people are on the network, what they're doing, variety of things like that. And yes, they can feed the advertising. Any captive portal solution can do advertising on the captive portal and then on the connect screen that you go to after you've been connected to the internet. Some solutions, such as Ragapop, are able to actually insert advertising into the web browsing sessions of the end user. So it's not intrusive because they actually write over ads that would have come anyway. But this way, the network operator can get that advertising revenue instead of the website owner. So there's a number of innovative solutions such as that. And I'm still spacing. We've got another company that we work with out of Chicago that has actually a more complete advertising model where they do captive portal advertising, they do ad insertion, and they also integrate it with physical on-site brand advertising. They try to develop a complete package that can be sold to larger national advertisers, and they're actually achieving very, very strong results in terms of maximizing advertising revenue.
Nice. Well, as you think about it, Steve, let me know. Shawn, can you recall the name of that company in Chicago here? Or no?
Actually not aware of them, but WAV sells a product that does something similar and a lot more, which is called RGNet, and that stands for Revenue Generating Networks. That particular product has that advertising injection functionality, the interstitial functionality, but it also has a user management and a security component to it. There are a lot of networks that I've developed over the years that I use RGNets for. I find it to be a very effective product, a very capable product, and I use it a lot in city type deployments, metropolitan deployments, enterprise deployments, in a lot of different ways. People ask me all the time, why do you sell so many RxGs, which is the product they sell? It's the revenue extraction gateway. I say, I don't. I solve problems with it, which goes back to our mission statement here at Ruckus. It's not about selling more connectivity. It's about solving problems with connectivity. That's what we do in 2019 at Ruckus, is we solve problems with connectivity. And we use some of our partners in some of these spaces. In the public Wi-Fi space, there's a lot of people out there. I mean, to Steve's point, there's a lot of folks out there that do this sort of thing. And there's cloud-based providers like Purple and Incapto and Skyfi and of course, AV System, which makes a product I love called Linkify. There's a lot of really, there's, I could probably name 20 of them that do something very similar, which is providing people with access in exchange for maybe an advertisement, or maybe it's a social media follow, or maybe you log in with your social media. And in return, the operator, the smart city, the venue, whomever, gets marketing demographic information, because when that person provides that information, it goes into a report. Now, the other thing that those folks do is location-based information. If you do have that pervasive, ubiquitous connectivity that Ruckus can provide, then you can tell where folks are when they're accessing your network. And if you know where they are, you can communicate with those people based on that information. For a smart city, that might be GPS information for getting from point A to point B, finding the closest visitor center, finding the closest restaurant, finding the closest public restroom. Those types of information are invaluable to residents or people that are visiting a city. People that are visiting are going to get that kind of information and find it really, really valuable. But the point is, there's a lot of different products out there that integrate with our technology and provide public access benefits. And those public access benefits, again, are things like advertising, location information, and of course, marketing demographic information for the city.
Yeah,
very cool.
And just one last point. As Shawn mentioned, there's a lot of vendors. It's a dynamic space, and cities should look into this, because there's a lot of new capabilities being rolled out all the time that can allow, provide new ways for them to either monetize their networks, provide better services to their citizens, collect better information for use in city planning and decision making. And by the way, the company I was thinking of is Digital Lobby. So again, their model is similar to these other guys, but they aggregate multiple Wi-Fi networks from different operators, provide a larger volume of sites, so they can go to a national brand advertiser who they're willing to spend a lot of money on advertising. And Digital Lobby does a complete advertising campaign that integrates Wi-Fi online advertising with physical advertising, maybe a radio spot, and it becomes part of a major campaign. And all of a sudden, that very same Wi-Fi network is worth a lot more in advertising revenue.
Wow.
So interestingly enough, and again, this is not a segue, this is to go with what he's talking about. So Digital Lobby put the Wi-Fi, and it's a free Wi-Fi service that is funded by the local restaurants in the Naperville Park District, just a couple of miles from you there in Naperville, Illinois, Zach.
I could throw a stone at Naperville, Illinois. I love it. That's right. Nice. Very cool. Well, gentlemen, can you believe 45 minutes has passed?
It goes fast.
It certainly does. So, guys, this is going to be the point where we can stop. I think we've got about 14 questions I did not get to. So this will not be our last engagement together. I just really want to thank you guys for your time this morning. I think Ruckus Networks is doing some pretty awesome things in smart cities. It's great to extrapolate some information from you guys today on smart city in general. Who's playing? Who can I partner up with? This is going to be a great series this year, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So folks at home listening, thank you for tuning in to AirWAVs, Waves podcast series, and Ruckus Networks. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Steve. And we look forward to our next one with you guys. Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Great. Thanks for having us, Zach.
All right. Bye-bye.